very fine points of lines, lots of detail, trying to get things, you know, to be very specific objects. And if your pancakes don't stick at all, those little lines, they're very small, and what'll happen is as you layer it, and as it cooks, it'll like curl up. And so this is all about layering. So after I draw this like coloring book, I'm gonna come behind it, do shading and highlights and all that stuff. And if it peels up, then whatever, the next layer is gonna erase like the corners of eyes and the edges of lines and get rid of some of your definition. So that's something I try and keep in mind. Get over here. Whenever I do a character of any sort, I always like to start on the eyes. There's that old adage, the eyes have it, they're the window to the soul. I've found that even if you get every other detail on a person's face perfectly proportional and accurate, if you don't get the eyes right, it's not going to look like the person. Because there's so much of your personality is contained in your eyes.
Crazy.
So I often take a little bit more time and energy doing eyes than, you know, it took me a while to learn that. I am not unofficially like I never went to art school for this. This is a self-taught, goofy thing I learned in strange circumstances, and I mean, truthfully, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I figure if I just talk confidently and smile a lot, you guys will be like, oh, that guy's great, you know? So that's my strategy. You'll notice while I'm using these detail bottles, I mean, I have, you guys know the color wheel at all? Roy G did? I've got basically red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. Well, indigo's not a real color. Don't believe what people tell you. Purple. And I've got 3 tones of each. So I have a dark, a mid, and a light. And with that kind of a palette, I can actually do a lot of really interesting things that require, so like even with just like her eyes right now, I use 2 different shades of blue to sort of create this more glossy, interesting effect that, I mean, you'll really get to see it once I flip the pancake over. But this is just the kind of stuff that's going through my head as I go. Something else that I learned the hard way is that you don't, I mean, especially with a medium like this, pancake art is, you're never going to be perfect with it. It's too weird, and there's too much, it's liquid, it's fluid, the griddle's on, there's so much that's going on that if you stress too much about making your pancake art perfect, you're actually it's going to be worse than if you don't worry about it being perfect. I learned, and like I said, learned that the hard way. I mean, anytime I overthink it or stress out or I'm feeling a lot of anxiety about what I'm drawing, it never looks as good as when I just kind of let go. Now, you know, I've been practicing a lot, so, you know, maybe there's a certain amount of practice that you have to have before you can really do that, but at any rate, the more fun you have with it, usually that shows in the art you're doing. It's a form of communication, it's a form of expression. So if you manage to really get in there and not worry about being the best alive or being amazing or whatever, pancake art will look way cooler. And I'm sure that applies to other artists, you know, I mean, it's more of a life philosophy thing than a pancake specific thing. Yes, it's light. Let's see. Something else I've learned, especially when I'm doing these fancy detail ones, is you might see me jumping around a lot on different colors and stuff. It's a little bit easier to talk about it when I'm using the simpler palette, but in my head what I'm basically doing is I'm creating a coloring book, so to speak. I'm doing the line art, but there's another little technical step that's going on here where different sections of, like Tinkerbell's hair is all gold, her face is all flesh tone, that I'm going to do that line art with a different tone. Like I'll use the darkest gold tone to sort of outline her hair, and then use different highlights when I actually get this part done. And that sort of creates this more visually interesting, more pleasing look. It makes it look like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. Now come here, get that shine. And you see, I'm not really, like, stuff like this, I'm not really trying to be perfect. I'm not like, oh, she's got 16 threads of hair right here. No, it's just like, okay, there's, here goes some white. Art is all about contrast. It's all about creating differences that the eye can see without even, I mean, a lot of times, like the best art out there, you know, you don't have to be technically proficient as an artist to look at a piece of art and say, you know, oh, that's good. You know, I can tell, because so much of it is communication, and it's, the human brain does a lot of the work for you. And once you learn, just from practicing, like what details you can omit, what details are really important, what's the most potent form of communicating an idea of like how an eye looks or how a cheek looks or something. You start to be able to sort of focus your energy on the really important things and stuff, and not waste as much time on things that don't really affect how a person feels about a picture. She's got these big old wings. I'm not going to get the whole wings in there, but I do like to, you know, imply some details. We'll just say... Call it a little bit of background. It's like a little portrait picture. Got some highlights now. I'll go back over that zone and kind of fill it in with my mid-zone fill. I don't have to worry so much about detail. This is more about just giving it a background. Because again, whatever I put down last in an area is what's going to be on the bottom. So even as I cover up all these details, this is another reason why I like the girl to be on a little bit, because it'll solidify those lines, and then when I do this step, they won't blend together in one big mass. You'll still have some of that definition. You'll still be able to see some of those line works, or that line work, and some of those strokes that create the sort of illusion of texture in the hair. So at this point, I've only got like one more zone I need to color in. I'm going to turn this on because it's going to take a second to get really hot. Let me go ahead. She's got like a tiny little hint of color in her wings. It's mostly like a whitish, but we're going to put a little blue in there just to make sure it's identifiable from the rest of her body. And, you know, and like I was saying, a lot of this, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of, I'm like, yeah, it's bluish. Let's just mess around with it. just play around with it, and a lot of times I surprise myself. That was probably not a good idea because you need to have that contrast there to the finer jawline. Mistakes, they're delicious. If I mess it up, like I said, still tastes great. So another thing that you might see me do, and I do it a lot in videos, and I do it a lot of live events, is I like to give pancakes borders, especially if I've used any white in a line. I like to give it some contrast on the outside. This picture I'm using reference has a bunch of green around Tinkerbell, so I'm going to use green as her border. And I'm just going to kind of come around, and I mean this is while the pancake cooks, I'm making this line. And what this will do is this will, in addition to kind of holding the whole thing together in case there's like little details like this hair right here can sort of flake off, because it's food, you know, it can be very fragile, and by doing this you have a better chance of holding the pancake together, and also you get the added aesthetic bonus of having a little bit of contrast, a little more, something more visually interesting, more pleasing to the eye. Here's the second green, create this sort of illusion of a gradient, make it look like it's kind of blending out. Looking through now, I'm going to take a little bit of plain batter and just kind of go over it. See, sometimes there's still little spots that I didn't hit. I just want to try and make sure it all sticks together, reinforce it, and then you just let that cook all the way through. Make sure this isn't going to, I don't want to burn her hair off. Alright, we're up to 350 degrees. So this is something that is worth knowing about residential griddles. I have this set between 200 and 250 degrees, and yet my surface thermometer is telling me that's 401 degrees. That's a weird problem, right? That happens. They're not terribly expensive. You know, if you want a griddle that has like a perfect heat element thermometer, you're gonna cost like $3,000. So I don't worry about that. I have the thermometer to help me keep it under control. The way they basically work, they're not precise. They go up to a high heat and then shut off. It's like your AC at home. You know, it's like, all right, it needs to be 70 degrees in here, and now it's 74, so we're gonna turn back on. And you get like this window. Usually it doesn't go up to 400. That was a little weird. That's why I keep this. I can kind of sense that. It usually fluctuates between 200 and 300. You know, it is what it is. It's a low enough temperature, even at 300 degrees, that it shouldn't mess your coloration up too much. So I mentioned not using non-stick spray. You guys may notice, some of you might know that this object here is not something you usually see being used in a kitchen. This is a spackle knife that's used when spackling walls and drywalling homes. I have not spackled with this. I only do pancake batter spackling. I use this tool to carve the pancake loose because, I mean, it's moving now, but you might have noticed that it's kind of stuck. I don't use any non-stick spray. It's going to stick a little bit, and like I said, you want that, but at the same time, you want to have something with a flat, firm edge to sort of get over there and release the pancake. So now it's moving around. You got yourself a little bit of Tinkerbell ready to flip. Have I made you people wait long enough? Are you ready to see this? There's a lot of phones out here. Alright, here we go. Playing. She's cute. I can do a Death Star. You guys want to see a Death Star pancake? Alright. Turn this griddle down. I'm going to let that. So, in between pancakes, I like to get it back down to a lower temperature.